Education and learning are the foundation of everything humankind has created. Throughout thousands of years, we've seen technological advancements that we've never even thought possible long ago. Since normalizing higher education, those advancements have seen continuous growth as we've pushed the limits of what it means to be human and pass on knowledge to one another. And some of the greatest schools in history are now teaching concepts that were long thought to be beyond human comprehension. But still, to this day, no professor, research expert, or amount of higher education can tell me who this is. My name is Braxophone, but you can call me Brax, and welcome to my newest guide. Today I'm gonna be going over, this guy keeps telling me her name is Iuno. Anyways, let's just get into it. Iuno combines two of my favorite things, Rinface and... which is why I will be mating her going forward, so long as I can get her S6 completely free to play, which I'll be doing at twitch.tv/Brax. But don't worry, this guide video is going to cover her S0 gameplay because most of you are saving for the girl with the midriff. All in all, Iuno is a healing sub-DPS character that buffs both heavy attackers and characters who are using Crown of Valor, who generate a shield up to once every 0.5 seconds up to 10 times stacking. In this video, I'm gonna focus on her sub DPS and support capabilities. Her personal damage isn't negligible, but her main DPS potential isn't competitive with main DPS characters unless you unlock sequences. So first off, Iuno has two different states, Lunar Cycle Half Moon and Lunar Cycle New Moon. The easiest way to think about this is that Half Moon gains Forte and New Moon spends Forte. When in Half Moon or no state, Iuno will use her Moon Ring to attack, and in New Moon, she'll use her Moon Bow. If you're ever not sure which one you're in, you can look at the sky. I mean, that's the slowest and most inconvenient way to check, but at least it's pretty. To enter Half Moon, all you have to do is intro skill, basic attack 3, or use her skill. Then your skill button will glow green for up to 5 seconds, and once you use it, you'll unlock a new ability that replaces the jump button, and it'll alternate you between Half Moon and New Moon states whenever you use it. You can also enter Lunar Cycle by using her Resonance Liberation, but you don't have to use her skill for it. It will just automatically put you in that state. Both Half Moon and New Moon also have different skills. Half Moon uses her Chakram once, and New Moon does this. Using her as a sub DPS will mean mostly using her in New Moon state, and you can use her bow combo twice per New Moon state at S0. Also, while in New Moon, Iuno can fly around on her bow. Using wings is still faster, but sometimes you just prefer to be a diva. Now, in addition to Half Moon and New Moon, there is also a Full Moon, but it's not a state. Instead, it's a domain expansion that does absolutely nothing unless you're Augusta. When your Concerto energy is full and your outro skill is ready, you unlock a heavy attack that heals allies and leaves an AoE behind. That AoE is Full Moon Domain, and it'll restore HP and stamina for characters inside and lasts for 30 seconds. And if a character gains a shield inside the domain, they gain a stack of 4% all damage amp, which caps at 10 stacks or 40% damage amp. Iuno herself can take advantage of this because one of her passives gives her a shield when she uses a basic attack, skill, liberation, or intro skill, and her second passive gives her 5 stacks of Wand Light, which is what the stacking buff is called. But other than her right now, in version 2.6, Augusta is the only other character that gets huge benefits from it due to her constant stacking shield mechanics. Unfortunately, all of Iuno's shields that she gives herself do not pass on to other characters, meaning that this damage amp is specifically made with Augusta and Iuno in mind, and at the moment, nobody else. Because even though characters like Brent and Genshin can shield, Brent's shields are not very plentiful. I mean, that guy's HP bar is about as exposed as his chest. Genshin is a long forgotten unit, however, with the right setup, Genshin's DPS can benefit enough to put her on par with some of the older main DPS characters. I also haven't talked about one of the best parts of Iuno's kit, which is this animation in particular. Iuno's Resonance Liberation dishes out a high damage multiplier, gives a bunch of Forte gauge, and instantly activates the Lunar Cycle state. You'll want to use this early on because the sooner you use it, the more chances you'll have to see this. Iuno has so many of my favorite characters' features, I wouldn't be surprised if she also happened to love gems. Lastly, her outro skill is another damage amp, but this one is a massive 50%. It's only for heavy attack damage and only lasts for 14 seconds on one character, but it's great for units like Gian, Zani, and Augusta. As far as Iuno goes, her personal damage is mostly considered Resonance Liberation damage, meaning that's the type of buff you'll be looking for. And when it comes to talent leveling priority, I'd focus on her Forte circuit, Liberation, Skill, and Intro skill, but you can level her normal attacks last if you plan on using her outside of endgame content. So you might be wondering, Brax, what comes next? Well, if you know, you know.
Brother, this guy stinks!
Iuno actually has multiple rotation options that vary a lot based on her position. Many of you guys might be fans of Missionary, but I'm a fan of her sub-DPS position, where she fits best without sequences. So let's go over her teammates, and then I'll show you that one first. A sub-DPS healer is what Iuno's meant to be at S0, and her best team for this is Augusta, Iuno, and Shorekeeper. Since Augusta can get full stacks of Iuno's damage amp buff for a total of 40% all damage amp and 50% heavy attack amp. Gion can also be used instead of Augusta, even though he doesn't stack shields, but dishes out heavy attack damage. In this team, you could opt for Chacona instead of Shorekeeper with her signature weapon to further add arrow damage bonus to the whole team, or even Arrow Rover and Bloodpack's Pledge for even more arrow damage amp. In fact, if you have Chacona's signature weapon, you can play both Chacona and Arrow Rover together with Iuno for a ton of buffs and an all-around pretty solid team. Jensen with Iuno and Chacona with her weapon, or Arrow Rover with Bloodpack's Pledge, actually finds quite a bit more value than she used to, though she's on par with some older main DPS characters as opposed to the more powerful new ones. At last, it is finally tea time. Zani and Peeb can also pair with Iuno for the heavy attack amp, but in this case, you'll just use her instead of Shorekeeper. Iuno can also work in place of Shorekeeper as a healer or support in most teams, but the main downside is that she doesn't give as many universal buffs, and the overall damage she adds compared to Shorekeeper isn't as high. In order to get the most damage out of her that you can though, this is the rotation that I'd recommend in her current position. Start off with Iuno's intro skill and go straight into her regular skill. Use her Echo if you want, and then use her Resonance Liberation. After that, use her jump button to switch to New Moon State, which is her bow, followed up by basic attack 1, 2, and 3. Then you can skill twice, use her heavy attack, and outro skill. Within that rotation, you can put Echo skill wherever makes sense for you. Another thing to note is that if that rotation is too long for the characters you have on field, you can skip her second skill in New Moon State, as well as her heavy attack called Absolute Fullness, which is her end of sequence heavy attack. Technically, you don't always need the healing from her domain expansion, and if you're not playing Augusta or Jensen, you won't be wasting any buffs. But if you're playing Augusta or Jensen, you want to make sure you always use her end of sequence heavy attack for her domain. And if removing a skill and Absolute Fullness isn't short enough, you can even cut out the very first skill and make it intro, Resonance Liberation, switch states, basic attack 1, 2, 3, skill, skill, outro. Keep in mind though, this is just for her sub DPS position, and that for main DPS Iuno with S1 through 5 and S6, there are different rotations that I won't be going into detail for on this video. To make all of this work every rotation though, you will need the right build. So let's go over that next. When building Iuno, you have quite a few options for one of the sets, but none of them will make her put more clothes on. Like Augusta, she wants 3 Crown of Valor echoes for the set, since she generates shields for herself and can take full advantage of the attack and crit damage buffs it gives. For the 2-piece though, you can literally use any 10% arrow damage bonus 2-piece like Sierra Gale, Windward Pilgrimage, and Gusts of Welkin. You can even use 2-piece Moonlit Clouds for energy regen or Lingering Tunes for attack percent. A lot of old echoes can be repurposed for her. The only new thing she'll need is Crown of Valor. If she's in a full support position using a shorter rotation, you can also opt for the 5 set of Moonlit Clouds with Impermanence Heron to buff your next character. However, you should only use Impermanence Heron with that specific set. If you use Heron though, you do have to make sure you're on the ground in order to actually use it. Generally, this set in Echo just feels worse to play, but it is an option. The best main Echo for Iuno with her main Echo set, Crown of Valor, is Lady of the Sea, not to be confused with the brand of tuna. It gives her a 12% arrow damage bonus and 12% liberation damage bonus, which affects most of her damage. It's also a summon rather than a transformation, which means using it takes virtually no time for the bonus damage. As far as main stats go, aim for crit rate or damage on the 4 cost, arrow damage on her 3 costs, and attack percent on her 1 costs. Attack percent is only slightly worse than arrow damage 3 costs, so you can substitute those at any time if for some reason your arrow damage substats are just not cooperating like they tend to do. When it comes to energy regen, you want to keep all of that to your substats though. Going for at least 125% energy regen for the worst case scenario teams is ideal, but for a lot of teams you'll only need around 110%. As a reference, you'll need 120% for her Augusta team, so that's why I recommend 125%, just to make sure less optimal teams still work. For her other substats, she wants crit rate and damage, resonance liberation damage, and attack percent. As far as weapons go, don't worry about those, you won't even see it. Iuno does anything except fight with her hands, which is exactly why she's a gauntlet user. Her signature gauntlet is Moongazer's Sigil, which looks very pretty and adds quite a bit of personal damage from the nearest 4-star and the Abyss Surge's 5-star. Moongazer's Sigil gives an attack bonus, a liberation damage bonus, defense ignore, and as a crit rate main stat. Outside of that though, basically every other 5-star weapon ends up being pretty strong. Verity's Handle, Blazing Justice, Tragic Comedy, and Abyss Surges are all strong. If you've been collecting Battle Pass weapons, those tend to be pretty good too. Honestly though, this chart's gonna be easier to read than the script, so just check that out. I know it's very tempting to go for her pretty weapon, and it'll definitely help, but you don't need it to use her. And in case you forgot, here's a summary of her build. You know that this girl has one of the best designs in all of Wuwa, even though she's a sub-DPS healer hybrid. But what you don't know is that her sequences, 1 through 6, all give her higher main DPS potential. Yeah, except for one of them, but that doesn't sound as exciting. You might be considering skipping sequence nodes for her, but just remember, if you do, your Rin card is revoked. Iuno's S1 makes her gain a massive 40% attack bonus when she's in Lunar Cycle, which is a majority of her time on the field. She'll also get energy every single second she's inside her full moon domain, but I'll be honest, the energy isn't a game changer since you can meet her energy requirements with just substats alone. It only really matters if you have terrible echoes. She will also get immunity to interruption during her skills in the new moon state and her full moon heavy attack. S1 is a decent damage increase overall, but not as much as S2, which gives an extra 40% damage amp to allies with 10 stacks of Iuno's buff, Wand Light. Iuno herself gets a massive buff from this, but it also applies to Augusta and other characters that can take advantages of shields. So hopefully we get more of those in the future, I don't know. S3 is a huge damage amp for Iuno's Moonbow basic attacks, dodge counters, and skills. It's literally 65% more damage. The rest of the sequence node doesn't do much for her rotation, but the general jump in damage from this is pretty big. S4, like Lumi, has one good thing about it. It gives your whole team one shield based on Iuno's attack, but the problem is, shields in this game are pretty useless unless enemies start one-shotting us, so maybe it's good for hologram, but outside of that, you won't really need it. I'm begging you, Kuro Games, please patch shields to give us interruption resistance. It does allow your team to get a bonus 4% damage amp from Iuno's full moon domain though, so wahoo, 4% more damage.
Wow!
S5 is a 20% liberation damage bonus, and S6 is... Wait, what the fuck? Okay, so apparently this thing gives you a 1600% damage multiplier on her full moon heavy attack, which for reference at talent level 10 has a 159% multiplier, so it multiplies the damage by 11 times. The main thing here though is that it instantly puts Iuno back into new moon state, fills her forte gauge, and resets her skill cooldowns as soon as she uses her heavy attack absolute fullness, which again is the full moon one. So she can remain on field for another rotation worth of time and quickly burst out more skill damage. Overall, S6 is a pretty massive damage increase, especially for main DPS Iuno, which is good for me specifically, the guy who's gonna S6 Iuno, completely free to play by the way. As far as weapons versus S1 goes, I recommend her weapon over S1 if you don't have another premium 5-star gauntlet, but if you do, then definitely S1 over the weapon. For your reference, here's a chart showcasing the difference in damage between sequences, and once you're done with that, make sure to hit that subscribe button right below the video. And follow my Twitch at twitch.tv/Brax to watch me pull S6 Iuno free to play and get married for the first time ever. I just want you guys to know that I was going to make some kind of menstrual cycle joke in this video, but I'm like the least qualified guy to make those jokes. I don't even play Love in Deep Space.